practices as it revolves around one-on-one and SEL and learning plans and all of that. So basically, I'm going to share my screen here.
You need me?
Okay. I'm trying to share my screen. You all see my screen?
Mm-mm.
No?
No, we do not.
Let me try again. All right. Is it up now?
There you go. We see it.
All right. Let me get it from the beginning. All right. So we're here to talk about one student at a time, a focus on SEL collaboration and Advisee one-on-ones. So Graham may have a better, when he speaks about the history of some of the things that we're doing and how did this all come about. I was trying to think about that. I think it just kind of evolved and happened in a way because, you know, as I'm sure all over the country, you have different entities wanting data, wanting information about students or work. And so, you know, rather kind of working on all these separate things, we somehow came about where we decided to, hey, we can just kind of incorporate that task and this other task together into one big task and accomplish a lot in a less amount of time, in a more streamlined approach, I guess, if you will. And so starting last year, we started meeting together in an SEL group. Graham did. He's our, he teaches English, but he also is our MTSS lead and SEL person, and I'm school counselor. And then we have a social worker and another counselor. So we just kind of all met on a weekly basis and took care of emergency issues, and then met with another team bi-monthly. And we're going to get into this. I'm just kind of giving you the quick thing of how we meet, and then we'll hash it out a little more, where we went into more depth and had more professionals involved. And so anyway, it just worked really well what we did. So we learned to incorporate all these different types of conversations that we were having to do for district guidelines anyway, or school or big picture, so that we were able to do it in a more streamlined approach. And so in that, and Rebecca's going to talk about this in a minute, but she and another person developed an individualized learning plan, where in this conversation with students in advisory, they were able to cover a lot of ground. So not only the information about their learning objectives and goals and their visions and their passions and all of those things, we also incorporated SEL questions. This was coming about from the state, especially when COVID hit. It kind of ramped up to try to just keep kind of a temperature check, I guess, if you will, on how students were doing socially and emotionally and everything, since we weren't able to lay our eyes on them directly. And so that piece was incorporated into these Navigator questions or SEL. So Graham will be talking to you then about the Navigator tool and how we met and what our meetings consisted of, and I'll jump in. But the Navigator is a tool that that the district purchased. It's kind of an online thing, but it had a set of questions, and the questions would change each time the teachers would meet, and we'd kind of get, again, a different temperature check on the different possible problems or challenges that students might be facing. It could be anything from academics to technology to anxiety, so assistance, not having enough to eat, or keeping the electricity turned on, just you name it. If it affected this child, we wanted to know about it. And so then what we did was we, in these meetings, we identified key players, like school counselors, like I said, the SEL lead, which would be Graham, the school social worker, we had administrators, and then our advisors, of course. Everybody was involved in just trying to figure out what is the problem, what is the concern, what's the challenge, and who then is best suited to meet that need. And so if we decided it was a school counselor would be the one that would be the person to best meet and address the need, it was assigned. We kept a spreadsheet, and I, as a school counselor, the other school counselor would then take go and handle that situation. And then we, as a follow-up, would meet and kind of discuss what we did and where we are in the matter and what needs to happen, or if it needs to go to somebody else. So identifying the key players and their professional skills and really just utilizing those people. And then we would have this full SEL team meeting that met bi-monthly, that included more people, as Graham will talk about here in just a little bit. And as I said, we would keep this spreadsheet and keep it updated, and we would follow up throughout the year. So we have all this in all these conversations through the Navigator, through the Individualized Learning Plan, through our spreadsheet and other means of documentation that we have in our school system. We have a lot of data and a lot of information where we can see the progress that we've made. So that's kind of just a kickoff of quick introduction to what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to leave it up to my colleagues to go into it a lot more detail, so that when we get to the end, if you have questions, we'll be happy to address those. All right, Rebecca, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great job, Kelly. Thank you so much. Yeah, it was busy around here this morning. I got to school and my parking place was already taken. So I had to take a different parking place. But we had a wonderful turnout for our freshman orientation and our open house, which is really great. Sydney and I are going to be presenting together, and I'm wondering if Carla can make Sydney a co-presenter. Okay, she's done. All right. So I'll introduce myself, and then I'll allow Sydney to introduce herself. I've been teaching 14 years as a BPL learning teacher. Math is my content area, and I've also taken 3 advisories all the way through. And last year I began a new advisory, and Sydney was one of the students I was lucky enough to have, or that I chose for my advisory. And we met virtually for the first 6, well, until I guess January. And then some students came back into the buildings, and most teachers did. But it was very challenging, and it was lovely actually getting to know students online. I had no difficulty with it at all. I feel like it was a really good experience. My favorite thing, I'm going to let Sydney introduce herself in just a second. My favorite thing about Sydney that I have watched her grow in this past year, is that she's always trying to learn new things about herself and others. She looks around and she notices who's being left out. You can tell I'm a noticer too. So I notice her noticing people, students who might be being left out. And what I love about her is that she reaches out to those people and really doesn't let anyone, and offers them friendship, and really doesn't allow anyone to feel like they're outside of our big picture learning family. So Sydney, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Okay. Well, basically, just like what Miss Rebecca said, my name is Sydney, and I'm a rising sophomore at Big Picture High School. I recently just joined a program called the Nashville Youth Design Team, and it's basically just talking about, or it's basically just about designing different things in Nashville, like implementing different things. Like recently, we just decided that we're going to implement a bike lane, and yeah. And another thing about me is that I'm super into architecture, and I want to become an architecture when I grow up. And I also want to like design buildings for different people, like low-income families or homeless people, etc. Just basically anyone who like has been kicked out of their home due to like different inequalities.
Awesome, thank you. All right, I'm going to share my screen, not my email screen, but maybe I can navigate to what I want to share from there. No, I don't seem to be able to. I want to share my
What are you looking to share?
my learning. I've got a learning plan that Sydney and I are going to work through together and show. And I have it pulled up, but I don't see it up here at the top.
I have it pulled up on my computer if you want me to screen share.
Yeah, that's a great problem solving. Thank you, Sydney. This is learning plans. This is the first time that we're actually using them, except for when we began the school 15 years ago. So we came up with this last year. A colleague and I did, and everyone here has been using these. So it's a way to allow everyone in the school to see what the students are doing. And that's what I really like about it, is that it gives us a chance to have a conversation together. So it really guides our conversations. And one thing that the learning plan began with is a personal vision statement of aspiration. And I asked the parents to also write their personal vision statements for their own child. So I think that's important, because that's something that is like the key to who you are. And that might change and alter a little bit, but it basically stays the same. I wanted to let you all hear what Sydney's mom said, what Tiffany said about her. She said, "I love her with all my heart and promise to support and cheer this girl on until she can't stand it." And I really feel the love from Sydney and her family. So we visit the learning plan 4 times a year, usually during our exhibitions, and the students can present from their learning plan things that they have worked on. Some of the, I'm just going to go ahead and do a one-on-one with you, Sydney, if that's okay. So I just had a few questions about your summer, because I was really excited to be a part of your presentation. Thank you for inviting me. And I noticed that you you didn't join the architecture group, but you may have had some interests that changed over the summer. Do you want to talk a little bit about what things that you are interested in, how you've grown in the past couple of months?
Sure. So, like Mr. Record said, I didn't join like the architecture thing. It was more of a design thing for different places. I think mostly my interests have changed like a little bit just based on the fact that I might want to also pursue like designing different things such as sidewalks in Antioch or bus lanes in different places in Nashville. So
Yeah, that's great. That's like your community spirit has really grown. I love that. So when you were working in your design team, were there any strengths about yourself that you identified that you were surprised that you have?
I'd probably say brainstorming. Like
Cool.
in my youth science result, it said that I was good at brainstorming, but it hasn't really like clicked as much to me as when I got to the youth design team program. Like we would have to do projects out like either every day or every other day. And so like I would just have to think on the spot, like what can I do to figure out what they want me to do.
Awesome. And in case you all, well, I can't do it right now, but normally what Sydney and I do is we talk a little bit and then I'm the person who records everything into her learning plan. Then I can send it to her and she can look over it and send it to her family. She can look over it and add anything that she wants to add. Okay, well, you're going to help with brainstorming definitely this year. That's a wonderful strength. Can you tell me a little bit about the adult connections? I'm hoping that your summer experience could turn into some kind of an internship this year. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I see the two people that were there, their names were Kayla and Katie. They helped me connect with some different people. Like one of them being Miss Asia Allen from Gershall Smith. She's a famous like architect and she works, like I said, at Gershall Smith. And she connected me with just different people that are pretty big on the Nashville scale, like such as the mayor. I got to meet with the mayor, also a few council members, like the ones in Antioch, and I think also I forgot the other one, but yeah, I just been able to meet a lot of like influential people.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Wow. I'm sure that was an amazing experience. So you really made some good adult connections, and it was very meaningful learning that you all I'll just try to encapsulate what you did, Sydney, and then you can talk a little bit about it too. My understanding is that there were 15 youth, and it was a voluntary program. I don't know if you got paid for it, but I know you went ahead and you looked at our community and you came up with like 5 or 6 things as a group that we needed in our community. And there was a crosswalk that was the most dangerous one in Nashville, where people were being hit by cars, how to fix that, housing. So there were things that were really meaningful And is there anything else about that the design team that you would like to bring back to school and use here?
Well, I'm not sure. Well, basically we just made like I think one thing you forgot to add is that we made a survey and we gave it
Yeah.
out to different people like around different places in Nashville. They filled it out and then we took the data from what they said and implemented it into a map. And then we looked at the map to see like what exactly different people needed. And then we thought like what to make for it. So on terms of like what to put into Big Picture, I'm not sure.
Well, it was a similar process to what you'll be doing when you have an internship and you have to come up with a project. Mm-hmm. So I was glad that you got to be part of that because it's very similar to what we're going to do looking for an internship this year. Is there anything that you found that you want to get better at?
Probably sketching. We had to sketch a lot on different projects, and I recently sketched like a farmer's market, and it wasn't as good as I specifically like wanted it to be. It wasn't as into depth as I wanted it to be as well. So that's something I want to work on.
That's awesome. What do you think the next step is going to be when we get back into school?
Probably to find an internship and like just finish working on like my learning plan and to also work on my different exhibitions. That
Good. You had a lot of successes last year.
Yeah.
We also, like Kelly was saying, I don't know how much you remember of this, Sydney, but we used the Navigator tool last year to make sure that each student was food and home secure and stable, that you all had reliable internet service and had consistent computer access. Are you still using your school computer?
Yes.
Yay. That's awesome. I love that each student now in our district is one-to-one with a computer. How about Sydney was able, when we did our meetings, to show me her workspace and her virtual learning conditions. And we shared you shared a lot of academic successes. And then we also talked about socially, emotionally, and outside activities, just where everybody was at that point. Sydney, what did you think about that? Did you feel like that was like invasive? Did you and your family ever, I know your mom was there with us for some of when I asked questions about being food insecure and housing, having a home. Did you ever feel like we were asking personal questions, or what was your take on that? I never got to ask you about that.
I personally think it was like I never thought it was invasive at all. Like my mom, she told me that she thought it was a good idea and that it's good that, people are doing this because there are people who don't have access to good Wi-Fi or don't have a computer and don't have a good space to be able to learn. And so having someone to be able to tell that and having someone to help you helps a lot.
I'm glad. That's awesome. I don't know where you're, Sydney, when you're showing the learning plan, I can't see your screen anymore because I'm looking at your learning plan right now. Could you scroll down to where the learning goals
Yes.
start? Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. So we also, in the learning plan, the students can choose learning goals, COM, QR, SR, and Sydney's done a really great job of completing this section. It looks like she's got a lot of learning goals that are, you know, individualized to her. So we've got a section also for EE students, for exceptionalities, because on their IEPs, they usually have 2 goals, and our EE teacher helps the students who need to complete this area fill it out. And then we have the final section. If you'll scroll down to the bottom with elective projects, foreign language, which I guess you take Spanish this year, maybe, Sydney.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. Our intervention and enrichment time, and any college and beyond goals. So that's a little bit about how we do the learning plans for our school, and how we focus on one-on-ones and do, you know, just get things completed so that we've got it down on paper and other people can look at it, and it's very easily explainable then when you're in your exhibition also. I don't know if anyone has any questions that they want to ask.
So there's a question in the chat that asked if it was possible to get a blank copy of the learning plan template. It looks, I like the looks of yours better than the one we're using. So all of the things that we have that we present today, the template, PowerPoint, anything Graham shares, some sample questions, I believe, from Navigator, which he's getting ready to talk about. We were going to make sure those all get dropped into that envelope that's or folder, so that everyone can have access to that after this session is over. So yes, you will have access to that. Awesome. It is a great plan. Sydney, sorry, I have to interject because I'm so proud of you. You did an excellent job. I'm so proud. I would never in my wildest dreams, if I didn't know you, guess that you were going to be a 10th grader this year. So very well spoken and very detailed, and taking advantage of your summertime to better yourself and to grow and to share that with all of us on your time off. I really appreciate it. You're great.
Yeah, thank you.
We're lucky to have her.
I wish I could see you though. I don't know why, but I can't see you. Can you do you have a camera that works, Sydney?
It says my camera's on, but for some reason.
Yeah, I know. It's just weird. There's some kind of a glitch. It looks like your camera's on. It just looks like you're in a room with no lights. All right. Well, if there aren't any other questions for me or for Sydney about the one-on-one process, we can move on. And I know Graham has some things to tell us about Navigator and his role.
Yeah, and we will come back when Graham's finished and have some more time for questions and answers. I'll tell you one question that came to my mind though while we're on it, Rebecca, because you're, as the advisor, are the ones that go through these learning plans, and you also incorporate these Navigator questions. When do you do that? Do you do it? Is it just like the beginning? Do you do it before the ILP, at the end, somewhere in the middle? Does it just come up in conversation? Like, when do you insert those questions about, you know, technology? Do you have any technology needs or subsistence needs or whatever?
Oh, yeah. So those Navigator questions, the ones that I talked about at the end, I usually do those at the beginning, and I ask for a parent to be present. We started doing one-on-ones once a week at the beginning of the school year, and then we tapered them down. And I think, Sydney, jump in and remind me if I'm wrong, but I think by January we were doing one-on-ones on an as-need basis, or at the minimum of once a month. So the Navigator tool, I would just quickly go through at the beginning and say, are you getting enough to eat? How's your housing? Is it stable? And do you have reliable internet access? There was a whole list of things that we checked, and then those forms would populate to Graham and Kelly. Most of the needs that people had, I had one student who did have a bunch of moves and needed more stable housing. We were able to connect people with where they could pick up food if they said that they needed food. I know our district passed out little hotspots, so we had hotspots. Each person, we had computers, and you could go and turn your computer in and get a brand new one if you needed it from the district, and there were centers for that. So we were able to, I really loved that if a student had a need, I was able to say, oh, well, here are the resources. This is where you can go. We had a whole Padlet that was devoted to that. Academic engagement, you know, Kelly, you sometimes helped me with students and would help them plan their time if they weren't having success academically. And then it was just fun learning about each other's, like, what am I struggling with and what do I feel really confident about? Those were the social emotional well-beings. And then enrichment. What am I doing? You know, did I go across the street and play basketball? So it was really a great, the learning plan and the Navigator together and the one-on-one conversations. I felt like I want to continue doing that this year.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Sydney.
Thank you, Sydney.
Craig.
Hey, everybody. So I'm Graham, and we kind of ended up, I mean, I think, you know, quarantine was a great time to rethink a lot of things. And I think that we realized that I've been an advisor for 3 rounds also, and I know a lot of times everything gets added to the advisor's plate, right? Like, it's always like, oh, here's one more thing. What, you know, we could do that in advisory, right? And then also things sometimes get lost or not followed up on. So we realized that we needed a way to have a structured follow through as a school as a whole with issues that were coming up in advisory and in one-on-ones. And at the same time, our district developed this Navigator tool too. So they kind of came together from different angles with, like Kelly was saying, the counselors, myself. So my role is I do restorative practices. I work with social emotional learning, and I also work with, it's called MTSS, support multi-tiered support system behavior, right? Which kind of goes into the restorative practices and everything too. So really just kind of catching kids on the personal quality side, on the emotional side, and making sure they have everything they need before we expect them to just go out and learn and be geniuses, right? So this is, on my screen here, this is what the district made at the same time. And they just developed this because of COVID, I think. But we have some pretty cool SEL departments. We have some good support from our district. And this is something they created. And I have emails that I will drop into the chat in a minute of the doctors that created it. but anybody could do this with Microsoft Forms or with Google Forms. It doesn't have to be this specific tool, and they just used Office Forms here. So they would put the student's full name, student's ID number, who did you speak with, if they had translation needs, and then you get down to the areas of concern, right? So food security, meal services, housing stability, reliable internet, and computer. And our district provided both of those this year for the first time ever. Virtual learning conditions, workspace. Do you have a place at your house? Sometimes our kids were watching other kids, or they were sharing spaces with other kids that were trying to talk. Can we help with that in any way? And we actually did eventually. We had some kids that went to the Boys and Girls Club, and we had some kids that eventually we got permission for them to come in like 1 or 2 days a week to work at school. Academic engagement and success, if they were struggling in any of their courses at all. Mental and emotional well-being. So that would get referred to counselors and social workers. And then enrichment, hobbies, and outside activities, just like some kids were bored, and they needed help with kind of getting hooked up with things to do. And there were still, even though it was all virtual, there were like writing workshops and other kind of creative outlets and activities that were going on in Nashville that we could hook kids up with. So they would add any other notes, and then action steps. Collaborative referral is our district's way to kind of document if there are maybe a little bit more serious needs. And so like our first line would be to put it into support and intervention. I go through and monitor those every week also. But then collaborative referral, they would email that to myself and Kelly and our other counselor. And then we would look at those every week also. So it's sort of this like overlapping web of support to make sure that everybody gets the help that they need and nobody's falling through the cracks. So that's what it looks like from the advisor's point of view. I'm being really careful to make sure I don't have students' names or information on this, but I had to populate it with the data from when they did the one-on-one. So you can see all the one-on-ones here. And again, I mean, every Google form, every Microsoft form creates these kinds of spreadsheets, right? So you can look through here and see this first student, academic engagement here. They need help with academic engagement. They also need help with food security. And these are sortable, so I could go through here and just, I have a lot open, so I'm not sure how quickly, or whoop. So yeah, I'm not sure how well this is gonna work. But anyways, you can sort it so you can see who has these needs. So all those questions that we had, we would look through and see those needs. These are other questions. The district would send them out every 2 weeks or so, just to just kind of double checks for like conversation ideas. And again, we've been doing one-on-ones with our kids on a kind of bi-weekly basis or so for like 15 years now. This isn't really new to us, but doing this with some sort of tool like this that they fill out that then goes to somebody else was new to us this year, and I thought kind of revolutionary. So we would get together, like we said, every week. Kelly and myself and the social worker, I don't know what happened here, it got way down to the end, would go through, and we would go through all of the collaborative referrals. So it would be the social worker, sometimes the exceptional ed teacher would be there, and then we had another social emotional learning kind of specialist that would sit in on those. So we'd go through everything that was going on, and we would take notes of like what was going on with the kids, so that we'd make sure that we would address these again next time. We'd go through attendance, and then we'd go through the Navigator results. So Navigator would be every 2 weeks, and that would be with the larger group, and that would include the principal, the assistant principal, else would be on that call? Definitely the exceptional ed teacher. It was just a much bigger group for every 2 weeks. And we would go over the things that we had noticed in the collaborative referrals, but we would also go over the navigators of that sheet that I just showed you that was like, what were all the things? So we would say, okay, well, this kid has a virtual learning need. So Gary, and there'd be an exceptional ed student. So our assistant principal who was handling our technology and stuff, and our exceptional ed teacher would follow up on that, right? This kid, somebody had written a collaborative referral for, so one of our counselors and our social worker was going to follow up on that. And we would have it all dated, and we would meet again every 2 weeks, right? So we did that for all of the areas in the Navigator, and it worked really, really, really well. It was the first time I feel like, you know, that I didn't, as a advisor, you know, there's just so much stress of like keeping everybody's lives in your mind and going home and being like, oh God, I forgot to follow up on blah, blah, blah with some kid, right? And this felt really good. Like we were really capturing it, and we were really systemic about it, and had a mechanism for other people besides just the advisor to carry some of that weight and to follow up and make sure that those kids were taken care of. The district sent out, this is, they had like a whole thing about how to do the check-ins. I think I shared that other thing, so I don't really need to share that. I think that's pretty much it for what I was going to share, but yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I just thought it was, I mean, it seems kind of simple, but it was really powerful to have such a systematic and spread out way to check up on the kids and make sure that all of their really important needs are being met. So thanks, that's all I have to share. I think, Kelly, we were gonna open it back up to questions now.
Yeah, excellent job, Graham. I wanted to just speak a minute about, as a counselor from the collaborative referral. So, you know, sometimes when the advisors are having those conversations, you know, obviously some things are more pressing than others. And there were kids having some serious, as we know, that was the issue across the whole world, really. The anxiety was way up, and self-harm and those kinds of, you know, kids were really stressing out, and they were needing socialization, and there were just a lot of stuff going on. And we had people, of course, lost jobs. And so some of those more pressing and immediate needs, I think got to us. I think we got more of those, and I think we got them a lot quicker. And it was this team approach that did that. And so the collaborative referral is just a document, again, that Graham said that the district created. It comes through our counseling department, but it's, you know, just, and I'll see if I can get permission to share that. If I can, I will drop that in as well. But, you know, it just kind of outlines, I guess, with a little bit more detail, the actual concerns that are going on with the student. And then like what all's been done so far, and what are the next steps, and who's it getting referred or assigned to. And so when Graham gets those, so that when the advisor completes those, then they emailed it to the student's counselor and to Graham, and then we would be able to get those. If it was real immediate need, we could get right on it. We didn't have to wait till our meeting date, you know, to get with that student. And then Graham would then refer it on to what we call central intake, which is down at central office, who houses all of these things, and kind of the big hub for all of the support. So, and then we would meet and follow up and have more of the story to share after we'd had a chance to contact parents and students and see what was going on, and kind of put others, you know, our minds at ease, and just to know that kids were being cared for and taken care of. So, and especially during that year of COVID, you know, so like I said, it kind of all just evolved the way it did. You know, some of these things have been going on the way for years, but everybody's doing their own thing. And this is the way we took our one things that we were doing and plus what was assigned to us to do. And we come together and handle it all together as a team and give the student the best support based on their needs. Who, you know, I'm not the best person to call for technology assistance. And while I can help with, you know, if there's a housing needs and whatnot, really the social worker is the better person to go to for that. So I never guess I would have dreamed when we started it how well it would go. And the documentation, you know, we all, whether you're doing this or not, we all do so much stuff and we don't even realize what we're doing. We don't, over the course of the year, you don't really remember all the conversations and all the interactions and all the things that you did to help a student. And man, this just was like eye-opening. This, like, we do a lot. And I think we did a lot more this year because of this process. So if you guys want to open it up, let me do this. If I can share my screen again. So maybe this could be some good discussion questions for everybody. I could get it up. There we go. So just in discussion, what do you think that you can do in your school? And you can type this in the chat or just unmute yourself. What are some things you think you might be able to do in your school if you don't have the Navigator program? Again, that was something our district rolled out for us. Maybe Carla or Graham or Rebecca can read chat because I'm on my screen. Getting any feedback?
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything in the chat yet.
Okay.
Just a couple things to add on you mentioned the collaborative referral process, and I've been places in the past more in a higher education setting that relied heavily on, you know, documenting those referrals, and I've experienced it kind of got absorbed by goals being set for how many you document, how many students are referred, and kind of lost sight of that reason to help the student, and that's the, you know, the reasoning behind it, rather than just being another bean to count as far as number of those that were accomplished. Have you experienced anything like that, and how do you manage to keep that student centered?
Well, as far as you saying like a quota of some sort, like you have to meet? Yeah, no, that's not on us at all. Now, I will say this, in our student management system, we have something called support and intervention is one of the tabs, and that's where we do document. Like, so as a counselor, if, so let's say Rebecca sends me a collaborative referral on Sydney for academic support, and I get that. I meet with Sydney and, you know, help her with some study skills and a time management, whatever. And then kind of, that's an easy one. So we close it out. So Rebecca would have reported that in the student management system that she filled out a collaborative referral for academic support. And then I would have logged in there that I met with Sydney, followed up on the collaborative referral. But that would be essentially it. It's very minimal. We don't, but, and so there is in our data system, a report that would show like how many collaborative referrals I did, but nobody looks at that as like, well, you know, you're not doing enough collaborative referrals. I've never had that concern. And it is a paper trail, you're right. But for me, it's just like everything else in education. Some of those things, boxes you just have to check off, okay, I did that. But I don't let it consume my time or my day. I just put on there what I got to put on there and move on, because it's really about the kid. I'm going to spend more time with the student than I am filling out a form. That's a good question.
Kelly, I wanted to add, some of the data that we didn't include, and that, like, I guess if there is any sort of pressure from the district, maybe it's to get like suspensions down and office referrals down, and out of school suspensions down, things like that, which I'm all for. I think that's great. I don't think we should just be like relying on that, right? But if anything, that's the data that they look at. And we did a few years ago start being a lot more proactive on the front end, trying to help the kids, like the high flyers that were getting a lot more referrals or office referrals or whatever. And so we kind of came at it from that approach from the start anyways, was like, well, why are these kids having trouble, and how can we help them? And it did bring our numbers dropped from like 400 to like 40 or something like that. Kelly, I don't really remember exactly, but it was just
ridiculous. Yeah,
it was ridiculous. And then last year, obviously, I think we had like one because we
weren't in school most of the year.
Yeah, we weren't really in school. But I'm curious to see this year how that continues. But I like that it's like it fulfills what the district wants, but it also actually works and has like a meaningful, impact on the kids, because it's helping them to manage their emotions so that they're not having outbursts and problems in class and stuff.
And I'll say also, there are some things like, so I was on attendance team as well last year, and the district policy is when a student has 5 absences, we're supposed to do a collaborative referral on that. So on our collaborative referral at the top, there's all these, on one section of it, there's like, you can check boxes of what it is. And if it was something like self-harm or anxiety or academic, you kind of can tell just from the check boxes, like, how urgent is this? And then, so if it's attendance, that's not urgent at all. But in that sense, it's just, I know it's because somebody got 5 and I'm checking off a box for the district. And those collaborative referrals are really just, you're just doing those to say you did them, because they don't really have a lot of information, because it's just, you just have to use your own judgment in that. But I'd say for what we did with the purposes of this ILP and Navigator, the collaborative referrals were great in quickly identifying the more serious needs so we could get more immediate action for those kids.
Well, I was just going to say for the, in our school, which we're a newer school and we're smaller, we have something kind of like this, but now I'm seeing just how streamlined it can be and more collaborative if we tweak and change a couple of things, just so everyone is on the same page. And like Graham pointed out, so certain people can help with that lift, because as advisors, we do a lot. And and if we can quickly get the right person to, to do to help with support with whatever the student is dealing with, I think it would definitely help streamline that a lot quicker and be a lot more effective. So this is definitely a game changer, I think.
And, we did it all through virtually, and I mean, just like Graham and I and Rebecca, we're all here at school today. We're all back in the building, but we're still in our own spaces online. And while it may be yet another meeting, it's instead of Graham, Rebecca coming to me and then me going to the assistant principal or the social worker, and then and each one of those is a conversation. Now we're all at the same table having the conversation one time. Everybody's on the same page, getting the same information. We know who to assign it to, what they're going to do, and then the next time we meet, so here's what happened. and we all stay together in that way. And if there's more follow-up needed or not. So in the end, I think it saves a lot more time. Well, we can stick with this as what part of the process, is there anything that you guys think is maybe overkill or needs to be eliminated, or anything you would want to add to the process if you were doing this?
I had a quick question concerning your, I guess maybe communication with your staff, because one thing that I kind of noticed this past year was that, maybe something was passed along, because we have kind of like great communication that way, but like, say, if an advisor found out student A had food insecurity and that was passed along, and then the right people dealt with it, but history teacher, English teacher, science teacher don't find out till 2, 3 days, 4 classes later, and how it's affected them. Like, how did you kind of deal with that? Did you try to streamline that in any kind of way?
Well, I think it was kind of on a need to know, I guess, if you will. So, yeah, in our school, I mean, I know all of these big picture schools are vary in size and whatever, but I feel like that's pretty much a strong suit here. And now, honestly, as a counselor coming in from the traditional world to here, it's been an adjustment for me, because in my world, everything was just like, this conversation took place between me and this student and this one teacher, and so that's where it stays. It didn't go, but just knowing who you can trust and trust them with what. But I think our staff is really good at, if all the teachers needed to know, then we would share it with them. Hey, this is going on with this student. I just want to let everybody know. This is a confidential information, because everything was done by email last year. And that was another adjustment, just sending confidentiality stuff that you normally wouldn't put in an email. That was what you had to do. Sometimes you could call and text, but, just and prefacing everything with the confidentiality piece. But I think everybody here got that. Don't you, Graham?
Yeah, I was going to say, I also think it would get, people would talk about it during grade level meetings. I think that was another place where, because we'd bring up students of concern in that. And so the advisor would be there. Often one of the administrators would be there, and a counselor would be there also. So I think that would be where that would get kind of passed back to the rest of the faculty.
Those are good questions. Anybody else have questions, comments? Collaborative referral is a form. Oh, Graham wrote that. Okay.
Carla put up a link for feedback, please. If you give us some feedback in there, so we could know what was helpful and what wasn't. We'd appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Carla, for having us.
Yes, thank you all. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to stop the recording.